Hi, I'm Hubert Kim. I'll be talking about human perception resolution for joint torque feedback during arm isometric contraction. Our objective is to understand how people perceive external torques. Specifically, we are interested in understanding the minimum necessary amount of external torque for a person to feel its presence. This is useful for several applications. Mutual perception is a prerequisite for effective physical human-robot interaction. If a robot is to convey torques to a person's joint, it is useful to quantify the minimum torque able to be perceived by a person. Also, wearable robot could potentially be useful for physical therapy applications where the robot could guide a person in how to move properly. In this case, evaluating the minimum torque that encourages a patient's voluntary motion is necessary. Alternatively, a wearable robot could provide torques to a person to convey information, similarly to how vibrotactile motors can convey information. In this project, we want to understand the perceptual threshold of people with external joint torques under a variety of conditions. In this paper, we focus on arm flexion and extension movements. Proprioception, also interchangeably called a kinesthetic sensation, enables us to locate our body's position even without seeing our limbs. The primary sensory organs are skin receptors and muscle receptors. We want to mitigate exciting the skin receptors because the pressure sensitivity depends on the exoskeleton's specific shape and pressure. A person could potentially detect a light touch on their arm that is different than sensing an external torque. To prevent this, we mask the skin receptors by applying pressure to the arm so that any extra pressure due to the applied torque will not be sensed by the skin. The exoskeleton we built is made of a brushless DC motor that is controlled by TI's C2000 and DRV8305 motor shield. Pressure sensors attached internally are used to ensure the skin pressure receptors are masked during the training session. The device, which weighs about 500 grams in total, is back-drivable and capable of applying about 0.5 Newton meter in a stall condition. We use processing for graphical user interface and Code Composer Studio to program the microcontroller. Before putting on the device itself, wearing a sleeve followed by a foam distributes the pressure and masks touching sensation. Instead of using a separate torque sensor, we use torque that's calculated within Code Composer Studio after initial calibration with the load cell. The staircase method is a psychophysics tool used to yield the perceptual threshold while reducing human error that might be caused by guessing. Test subjects are asked to answer yes or no when varying torque stimulus are applied. The torque direction is randomly determined at each sequence. Within the same direction, consecutive yes answers lead to decreasing input until the answer switches to no. A series of no answers causes the program to increase the magnitude of the stimulus. Anytime magnitude changes from decreasing to increasing or increasing to decreasing is marked as a transition point. The average of the final two transition points is used as the converging value. The number of transition points determines the time to converge as well as the accuracy of the converged value. The test level involves 6 kinesthetic interactions of the wearer's arm under isometric contraction. There are two types of torques applied to elbow joint. One is preloading, and another is torque stimuli exerted on top of preloading. Against the neutral condition where no load is applied, flexional preloading, which is the force pushing towards our body, leads to the tricep contraction. In contrast, extensional preloading, that is, the force pushing away from the body, is responsible for activating the bicep. In addition to preloads, a test stimulus is applied in either direction, which corresponds to the black arrow in the figure. With wearers sitting at the test station, the external load is exerted through a pulley onto the exoskeleton, and subjects are asked to resist it while responding to the torque input generated from the exoskeleton. We tested on 15 right-handed subjects with the increasing order of external torque from 0 to 1.28 Nm and from flexional to extensional. The collected data was processed with a repeated measure ANUVA model. Asterisks in figure indicate that test levels are statistically significant. We have statistical significance between different preloading conditions, excluding the extensional torque with extensional preloading. In other words, extensional torque with the same direction of preloading is the most sensitive case because statistically no additional torque is required to be noticeable. The highest amount of torque required to be noticeable was extensional torque under flexional preloading. While about 0.15 Nm of torque was required for extensional torque with no loading, almost double the torque was needed with 1.28 Nm of preloading in the flexional direction. Flexional torque stimuli yield relative symmetric pattern showing that 0.09 and 0.07 of additional torques are required to be perceivable in flexional and extensional direction respectively. Then the slope is derived from the perceivable torque. Overall extensional torque over bicep contraction yields the highest torque discrimination ability, yet the lowest perception resolution was shown when the extensional torque applied over triceps contractions. Flexional torque has a statistically indistinguishable slope for the torque changes in either direction of preloads. In conclusion, joint torque feedback is a kinesthetic cue conveying information to a person similar to the effect of physical therapist. With the custom-built exoskeleton, we have explored joint torque feedback with minimizing the effect of pressure sensitivity. We study the minimum requirement for joint torque feedback to be used as a kinesthetic cue under different arms isometric contraction. Thank you for your attention.